Hello and welcome back to RageGamingVideos. My name is Holo, and we are back for set 4 of interesting things you didn't know you could do, or cool things in Elden Ring. I really enjoy this series because I actually learn a lot each time I make them. You guys leave a lot of great comments like, hey, did you know about this, or you can do this? And often there's things I just didn't know despite the hundreds of hours I've got in the game at this point. Either way, from my research and some great comments from you guys, we're back for set 4 of things you didn't know were going on in Elden Ring. Let's kick us off then with a really cool one. Of course, everyone's favorite boss fight, Malenia, Blade of Mikola. Have you heard that line before? Yes, she is a really tough boss fight. Her most annoying ability, the waterfowl dance, can obviously just clean you and ruin a run that's going well. To stop this from happening to you then, you can actually interrupt that ability by just throwing a pot. This is the freezing pot, and this is our pot of choice because not only will it interrupt her, but it causes that fast buildup of frost, which means when she's frozen, she's going to take more damage, making the fight easier. So it's kind of the ideal pot to throw, as well as interrupting her. And it's simple, like as soon as she leaps up into the air and hangs there, you begin throwing your pot in reaction to that. And as she's charging forward, you will interrupt her on the impact of that pot. You might take a single hit as it begins, but you will interrupt the move, which is the important part, and that will maybe save a run, or at very least make the fight a lot easier. And as you can see, just moments later, I do it a second time, just to show that, yeah, this works as intended. The freezing pots in general are such a good item to use in your gameplay, and obviously extra good since it interrupts her. We just need some rhymed crystal buds to actually craft these, and for your container, it will require ritual pots. To craft these, you'll need the Glintstone Craftsman's Cookbook number 6, which is one we can get early in the game. To get that cookbook then, you'll need to come here to the Carrier Manor, like I said, early game, and from the very entrance, you just step in and run straight east, and you're going to find a room here that I'm standing in front of just as you step up these stairs, and inside of it, on this body right here, is going to be that cookbook that you're after. Next up, we have a follow-up from last time, where I was looking at unique grab attacks that have you consumed by the enemy. There's the land octopus, which bites you and consumes you, and the camera follows you into the stomach. And also, yeah, Rykard, when the snake actually eats you, you are taken down the throat, down into the belly of the beast. It's really cool. Well, actually, there's a few more interesting grab attacks, a couple I want to look at. First up, you might know this one. The worm face has a grab attack, and it is absolutely disgusting. Being like gobbled by that, whatever the hell that face is, all those worms coming out of it, that maw, it's disgusting. Definitely not something you ever want to be grabbed by. But did you know that the spirit collar snails, the snail enemies of this game, they have a grab attack? It's quite rare, but they can actually grab you and twist around you, wrapping around you like a snake, constricting you, and then they just like bite and consume your face, like down your throat maybe. It's absolutely two horrifying grab attacks. One of them I didn't know existed in the game, that's for sure, and something quite interesting to look at. I suffered to get you this footage, so I hope that was interesting. Next, I have a kind of interesting but sad one. So you probably know about the storyline with the jellyfish, but in case you don't, you can come here to the Stargazer's ruins in the mountaintops of the giants, and you'll hear her speaking out, this jellyfish. She speaks of her sister. They had an agreement when they turned 14 that they would go to see the stars, but they become separated somehow. She's speaking actually about the jellyfish that you are given by the spirit tuner. Her name is Aurelia. So if you do reunite them by summoning Aurelia there in front of her sister, they'll have a dialogue, it'll be sweet, you'll get a little cute emote that lets you do a little spin, and then off they go, I guess, to go see the stars. And that's the end of the storyline, you might think. But we can actually learn a little bit more about them, and that's why I say it's kind of sad. Just behind the Stargazer ruins to the northeast is a little path that leads down to a sort of cliffside. And down here, we have some little rabbit creature ghosts, and a couple of gravestones. If we examine the gravestones, it says, here lies Aurelia and Aureliette, who never saw the stars. This to me implies that these are, well, I mean, they're quite small compared to your regular gravestones, aren't they? It implies that they died before they actually reached age 14. And somehow they were brought back as spirits, the spirits of jellyfish. Somehow we were able to reunite them beyond their death, and then hopefully they'll go see the stars or whatever that means together now. But it really calls into question the origin of the jellyfish spirits in this game. There are a lot of them around the world, and now you gotta wonder, what is the story behind all of them? Next, I have a couple of interesting things to say about these annoying ass siege fire enemy guys. As you probably know, there's a guy driving at the back, and if you target him, you'll do extra damage and kill these things way faster than trying to fight them head on, which can be really annoying. But there's actually a couple things you can do to also help with these guys. For example, I am currently equipped with pest threads, as you can see, and some incantations, including this one, can actually pierce enemies. So if I get close enough, I will actually be able to shoot pest threads through him and hit him in the back, like I just did. So if we shoot the pest threads, there you go. You see the damage you can do? As soon as you're actually hitting him, it skyrockets the damage, and it's really cool to see that some incantations have piercing capabilities, which come really beneficial against enemies like that. Thing is though, what if you don't have a piercing incantation like pest threads to do that with? Well, fortunately, at the top of the head, you can see there's some fire or gas coming out the top. That's actually a vulnerable spot. And if you draw them to a place where you can get above them, then leap down upon them and attack, you will actually do a special animation. You will sort of plunge and climb up onto the head and then stab into that sort of vent, blowing it up. The explosion does damage to everything around it, so you don't want to be near that when it actually happens. But yeah, you can actually do a unique plunge attack, instantly killing these guys if you can get above them. So using terrain to your advantage where possible against these guys is a good idea, but be wary that it's kind of weird. You don't actually do a plunge attack, you kind of leap towards the head, and then when you're about to collide with it, you do a light attack. And then that triggers this special animation. Pretty cool, and certainly very useful. Next, you might know about this building and what's inside of it in the Mountaintops of the Giants, but it's a secret if you don't, right? How do you get to it? It's kind of just out the way. If you don't know, there are invisible paths in Elden Ring. They've done this in all the series, and there's a couple around the world, and this is probably one of the more prominent ones. Now, it's not too bad when you're walking in a straight line towards the building, following the bridge, but it gets more complicated when the reality is you aren't walking forward into the wall. You need to go up there to that, which is certainly more complicated. Now, there is a tip that you can use, and it's how we used to do this kind of thing in the earlier games. You'd use these glowing stones, and they're like, oh look, I didn't lose the stone, it's still there, so this is still a pathway to walk on. And that works, sure, but it will require quite a lot of them for this long, invisible bridge. However, if you use the Ancestral Infant's Head, which we talked about in a previous episode of this series, you can actually place fire down, and that shows you where there is flooring to stand on, where you're safe to step. So see on the left there, they're falling, but here it's safe. And this is an infinite resource tool. All you need is FP to use it. It's not like we need any crazy stats to use this. It's not like it's going to take any particular skill. We just have to run some Ashen Flask for a little bit. So we can use it to reveal where we're supposed to go as we go up to the balcony. So as you can see, that has not fallen, so I can walk on it. Now I want to be very careful and not like step too quickly. We can once again use it, and we're looking for anywhere where it's falling off the side. So on my left there, it fell down, so I want to make sure I keep center. And as we can see, there's a nice message here, just to confirm that yes, that is the path. So you can use that in all of the invisible areas of the world. Just to refresh you on the location of that infant's head then, you want to come to the Ancestral Woods area in Nokron, and then as you come over here, there's this little sort of passage. You just drop down, progress over here, and once you're there, defeat the enemy and loot the chest, and inside of it is the infant's head. Next, I've got a weird one, and something I wonder if it'll ever be patched, but it's been in the game quite a while now. It's the ability to change off of items once you have benefited from the buff. So a clear example of that is going to be the white mask, and of course the Lord of Blood's Exaltation Talisman, which is going to be a great example here. So when blood loss occurs when you've got these things on, it increases your attack power. So as I do seppuku and cause that blood loss, you see I now have the icon at the top left showing, hey, you have that attack power buff. So I've gone up to 674 AR because of that. But let me just take off the mask, take off the talisman, and you can see I still have the talisman buff, and I still have 674 AR. So I benefited from both the white mask and the talisman for that entire period, even though they weren't equipped. Meaning you could get an effect like that and then swap to a different talisman or a different equipment during it and double up on buffs for maybe certain builds or certain strategies you're running. We're working on a max damage in one hit sort of video, so that's going to be vital for that. If you've played PvP recently, or since the beginning of Elden Ring really, sometimes you load in and the enemy is buffing up for 4 days. They're taking their Wondrous Physic, they're applying Flame Grant Me Strength, or you know, other buffs basically, and they're taking their time doing it. And then the fight begins. Now they're all juiced out of their mind. Well, it is well within your power and right to say, no, I don't think I will fight that. I think I will clear you of all of those buffs, actually. And then cast Law of Regression, which does exactly that. It cleanses the foes. It dispels them of their buffs. So, as you can see in PvP, I've got two clips for you. One where I was going in for this clip, and then the guy tried to Law of Regression me because I'd taken a Wondrous Physic, and he hadn't buffed up. I was like, well, okay, we just regressioned each other. Cool. So, some people do know about this. I see it very rarely, but occasionally, and it is funny. And the next guy. So, we have builds that do require these buffs, that have really fast attack speeds, or powerful spells that are quick, but they need to improve the damage of them, so they use buffs to do that. Well, you just cleanse them of those, and then suddenly they're not really doing that much damage anymore. And it's quite funny because, again, this is completely legitimate. There's nothing wrong with this. This is not against any rules or community rules. You are just using something you've committed to use. We need at least 10 faith to hold the seal, and Law of Regression actually requires 37 intelligence to actually run. So there is some serious commitment to actually run this. It's also 55 FP. But if you can, in your build, run this, you absolutely should. To learn Law of Regression, you're going to need the book that actually teaches you that, and then give that to a mentor to then buy that spell from. So you actually get the book from this hanging chair in this building. This is the Erd Tree Sanctuary on the way to the Erd Tree. And as you progress through the area, you come up this route and you're going to go this way, but there is this chair right here. Let me show you how to get to it. As you exit the Erd Tree Sanctuary and you're on your way to the Erd Tree itself, instead of progressing that way, we just turn left and come this way, and we jump onto the rooftop of the building we were just talking about. And you can see how there's a cracked window that allows us to enter. And then by entering, we just turn left and run on that route we couldn't actually reach before. And there's the body. And now we can reach it and loot it. And then we can take the book to any teacher. I recommend we all call him, the Turtle Pope, but is actually named Muriel in the Church of Owls. Bring that to him and learn from him. Last but not least, I want to talk about Bewitching Branches. These are a charm you can use to take over an enemy's AI. Basically, you cast it on them, and then they start attacking their fellow allies. They work for you now. So, yeah, they'll become an aggro target, taking the threat off you, and again, they'll attack the enemies. So if you use this on certain enemies that are quite strong, you can actually get a shocking amount of damage by just using it on an enemy and watching them do the work for you, which is wonderful. Very important, though, is the fact that this works as a hard CC to a level I've not really seen in any other form. If you Bewitching Branch an enemy, they are now not just neutral to you, they are your ally. So it doesn't matter how much you attack them while they're bewitched, you can kill them fully and they will not even fight back. It's quite an interesting item, and there's a lot of interesting interactions you can possibly do with this. So I definitely recommend you start using these and experiment with them. To craft them, you need Sacramental Buds and you need Miquella's Lilies. And the recipe comes from the Fervor's Cookbook number 3, which is actually given to you by Gideon, you know, the leader of the Round Table. But you first have to give him some intel. That intel is the location of Miquella, which, as we know, is in the Mohg's area, Mohgwyn Dynasty, the mausoleum itself at the top. When you actually enter this whole area, though, even the first bonfire, the Palace Approach Ledge Road, as long as you have entered this area once, you can then go speak to Gideon and say, hey, Miquella is in this area. And then he will give you the cookbook to craft with. We can either follow the White Mask Vare storyline and use the item to teleport us there, or we can just take the portal, the bloody portal that is in the west area of the inner consecrated snowfield. But yeah, once you've been there, once you've seen that whole area, you can go back to Gideon and tell him, and then he'll give you the cookbook so you can make those Bewitching Branches. But there you have it, our newest set of things you didn't know happening in Elden Ring, or things you could do. If you have enjoyed the video, please drop a like so we can make more of these. But more importantly, if you know something that we haven't covered in the series so far that could be included in a video, maybe we could even come back for set 5 of this series. For now, though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.